We'll go ahead and go into Unity. And we'll create a new project. Looks like you have a question. Or no? Okay. Then we want to choose 2D. You log in with Gmail or Google. Okay. Do you use Gmail? Do you both use Gmail? Okay. Um, at the end of class, you might go into Gmail. Just make sure you log out. Otherwise, it leaves you logged in. So if you don't want somebody else to read your emails and send emails from yourself, then make sure you do that. Now, or create a dummy Gmail account. I got dummy Gmail accounts, so you can sign in those. If they want to mess them, who cares? Okay, so now make sure it says 2D and click Create Project. The what? Yeah, 2D. Yeah. Now down here in the assets, go ahead and right click down there. And we want to choose Import New Asset. Is it still loading? Okay, let me wait then. Hmm? I was trying to figure out computer issues last night. Yeah, the Android app development class software is not working. Was working on my computer at home. I'm not sure if it is now because I updated to the newest version of Visual Studio, so I probably broke that now. But I did that to see if it fixed my issue with why I can't do Unity at home. It's like a nightmare. It's software. It shouldn't be that hard. Is everybody loaded?
It's still loading.
Still loading? Okay. Unfortunately, Unity talks to Visual Studio. Visual Studio somehow indirectly talks to Android Studio. I don't know how I made that link. But in the Android app development class is telling me that I need to go in Android Studio and update my emulator. It's just like, how do you even know that I get Android Studio? I mean, I'm sure I can see it, but they shouldn't be connected, but they are. Blinds are ordered. I asked about them.
Do what?
The blinds
Oh,
to block the sun from
okay.
so forth. Couldn't get any real good idea when they're coming in though. They're kind of telling them shifting dates on the furniture.
Yeah.
The blinds are kind of shifting too.
That'd be kind of nice if the blinds get here first from tables.
Yeah, that would be. Who knows? I might actually miss these tables. There's new ones. I don't even know what they look like, but they somehow connect together.
Yeah.
They had a bunch of meetings on furniture. And I wasn't going to them, but my department chair, she said they already decided. So it's like, well, I'm not going to go to that. She said, you don't have to go if you don't want to. So tell me I don't want to go to a meeting, then that's a given. I'm not going. Kind of wish I had now, though, so I'd see just what they look like. Still loading?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
It's halfway now.
Gotta love computers. Exact same laptop he has there, the same one you have,
Mm-hmm.
but his went twice as fast loading, and yours going twice slow. You two got big plans for Labor Day?
Well, working.
Working?
Loading more things now.
That isn't a comforting feeling.
Since person I'm looking to make plans with is busy, and some would be busy working as well.
Oh.
almost done.
Almost done? Okay.
Unless there's more to load after this one.
What's it loading?
Community files, program files. Editor, data.
I wonder if that laptop's never, you guys have never went into Unity on it.
I bet that's it.
Maybe. I didn't have to log in though.
You didn't have to log in?
No, it's
Huh.
I have a login on this one. And
okay. It's done downloading, but let's see if it pops up even.
Okay.
Okay. Even popped up, but I can't do anything yet because it's a update check. And I can't close out of it yet.
Oh.
Okay, now we're good.
Okay.
Fox said I was like, this must be Dylan Day.
Yeah, I just exited out or closed it and went back in and so forth, and it should take about 1 minute. Based on how fast that came back. Okay.
This took about like 10.
Now,
Well,
if you don't already have enough images, go into Google. And I'm going to especially grab a mountain scene. Desert. I'll grab a desert. And so I'm going to right click, save that image as. And desert. Let's grab the web page. Let's see, how do I view the image? Just click it. That's web page. Oh well. Saved image as desert. That's curious. WebP file. What's a WebP file?
I found the same photo.
web page file. So whenever you want to click on it,
Huh.
it doesn't do anything. But bring you to the web page problem.
Yours doing the same thing? Isn't this how I saved an image the other day?
Yeah.
I was able to save mine. I found the same photo as you.
Huh. You were able to save yours?
I saved mine, but it's the WebP file, and all it does is bring me back to the picture.
How bizarre. You were able to save it.
It's not letting me save it as a picture.
It could be because he's subject to copyright. I could. Okay, here's one. I went down to this one, and I can right click this and save image as in desert.jpg. We could just copy it and go into Paint and get it that way, but I was just wanting to save it. Okay, so desert, and I think I have the Bugs Bunny on mine too, but make sure you have a couple of images on there along with the background. So if you need Bugs Bunny, then go grab the Bugs Bunny or whatever. Okay, that'll give me another one. Okay, that should be good. Everybody got some images?
Mhm.
Now you can right click and say import new asset. And you can bring those in, but I'm going to first bring in desert. So I'll double click my desert. Throws it down here, and I can come up here and drag it and drop it up there. And I can resize this. So it takes up the entire space there, entire scene. I'm going to right click down here and I'm going to import new asset. And I'll bring in my Pink Panther. And I'll bring in both those Bugs Bunnies. Though if you just have two, that's fine. And then click import. So you can select multiple ones if you want. You don't have to bring them in one at a time. That's especially useful if you bring in 20 items. But you can bring in a package, which is a kind of a container of all of them. Now, if I click the Pink Panther, and drag it up here, we don't see anything, do we? Except for the little square where it should be. Now over here in order and layer, if I change that to 1, you'll all of a sudden see your image comes forward. So you can change it with this order and layer. Ever get their image to appear in front of their background?
It's loading.
It's loading. Well, I apologize for that. It's not anything you're doing. It's
Yeah, my picture didn't save.
the what?
So my picture didn't save.
Oh, it didn't save. I don't know what that WebP is. Besides the way of not allowing you to save the image.
Pictures. There we go.
Is yours still you're still loading?
Yeah, I just have to find it.
Oh, okay. This is what you have to kind of decide when you're developing a 2D game is what images should be before others. And how you can make it appear. Like if I was moving the Pink Panther around here, it moves over there. Which side of the tree is it on? In front, right?
Yeah.
So for your Pink Panther to appear like it goes behind the tree, yeah, that tree needs to be a separate image, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
And so then you'd have it layer wise, in the appropriate position. So when your Pink Panther goes, it looks like he's running behind a tree. So a lot of clever things you can do. You can't do much clever with just a background image where everything's set in stone. We'll mainly focus on the programming side, but there's a lot you can do from the artistic side in developing a really good looking game. Very good. Okay. So I'm gonna drop on another one of these images, and again, it's behind everything. So if I change that to a 2, it'll appear. Now if I pull out in front of the Pink Panther, you see it's in front of the Pink Panther, isn't it? So Pink Panther. If I click Pink Panther again, that's 1. If I want Pink Panther to be on top of everything, I do that as a 2, and I change Bugs Bunny to 1. And how did that change it? I didn't change it. Okay, Pink Panther's 2. I need to change this to 1. And change my background to 0. There we go. So now if I grab the Bugs Bunny and move him, you see Bugs Bunny's behind the Pink Panther. So that's our layers. Allows us to manipulate that. Now it's interesting up here. If you go to layers and you click Edit Layers and expand, there's actually a user layers here. We didn't use that, but we use the sorting layers. We'll see the layers later on. That's more of a define where you're throwing everything in layer 1. This is just like putting numbers to them, right? So, okay. Collapse that. Now we're going to cause the Pink Panther to move around on the screen. So I want to choose the Pink Panther. And over here, there's an add component. So you can click add component. Down at the very bottom, you're going to see new script. And I'll come up here and I'm going to say Pink Panther code. I'll just say code. And I pressed enter. Now it changes, it puts a script here, but it also puts a Pink Panther code down here. And now by giving it an appropriate name, you know which one's which, because you could have multiple C# scripts down there. Now if I double click that, hopefully it doesn't do a lot of updates in Visual Studio.
Yeah, C# maybe loads first. It's not done loading yet.
Oh, it's not done loading. Okay.
No, now it's done.
See, these are good things. That tells me when I install Unity, I need to go create a project and just do a very basic project and run it and make sure everything's loaded. So everybody's at this point? Not yet.
Nope, it's loading solution projects.
Okay.
Oh, okay, now we're back.
Okay. Now this update here, now this is tied directly. We're going to see different ways of doing that, but this is tied directly to that image, the Pink Panther. So we're working with Pink Panther here. I could even use a // which is a comment, and say this is the Pink Panther, just so I can keep it straight while I'm looking at the code. Now it's pretty hard not to when you use appropriate names. See what I called it? Pink Panther code. Okay. So now I'm going to have vector 2, and I'll call it position. If you remember this from the other class, I said the vector 2 is like your x and your y position. Now we're first going to retrieve from the Pink Panther, which is this. This refers to whatever object it's attached to. Dot transform dot position. This is going to take the current position of the Pink Panther and assign it to the POS. I was going to spell that out as position, but since I know position is kind of like a important word in this development environment, I shortened it. Well, now we're going to check for what's happened with the input. So I'm going to say if input dot now you see there's a get, and there's a get button, returns true while the virtual button identified by button name is held down. The next one, if I do the down arrow, says returns true during the frame the user pressed down the virtual button identified by the button frame. Button up, returns true. Get joystick names, returns an array of strings describing the connected joysticks. Get key, returns true while the user holds down the key identified by the name. Think auto fire. We're going to use a specific one here, and you're going to see it's very tedious to go across the screen. Get key down, that's the one we're going to look at. It says returns true during the frame the user starts pressing down the key identified by the name. So we're going to choose that one. And then we're going to do a beginning parentheses and key code dot right arrow. I know that isn't the standard for a 2D game, huh?
What component do you use?
Let's see over here. You have if you have your Pink Panther selected, or that Pink Panther up here selected, you click Add Component and you choose the very bottom where it says New Script. And while you're getting caught up there, I'll talk about this. We already talked about vector 2 declares that. This gets the current position, assigns it to POS. The if statement. The input.get key down checks, it's kind of a true or false statement, it checks whether you push the key down. What could you also do? Let the key go up? So there's different things you can program in. So get key down, and then this key code, it always says key code, and you do a dot, it'll bring up the list of all the keys on your keyboard that you can program. Like if you want to program escape, then you could program that. F1 for help, you can program that. Now once I do a key code right arrow, I'm going to do my beginning curly bracket and press enter. And now I'm going to say my position.x is equal to position.x plus 0.1f. Now down here, I want to press enter after that curly brace right there. We're going to, now that we've changed the position variable, it's not actually a variable, but it's like a type of object we've But anyway, once we've declared our variable, we want to reassign it to this.transform.position. So this.transform.position is going to equal to POS. Been good down to that point? Okay. Now, if I click attach to Unity, now if I go back to Unity and I run it, character's not moving at all. But now if I press my right arrow key and keep pressing my right arrow key, you see the character moving, right? So that's getting it to move. Now I'm gonna go back to here. I'll stop the code. So I click the stop debugging up here. Now if I come back to my my Unity and I run it, if I do my right arrow key, is it still working? Yeah. So that attaching the code there does not have to be enabled each time. Once you've done that, that's like send your code over there. We leave it running for debug purposes. So if something happens, it'll, in theory, bring up Visual Studio and we can clearly see the error so we can then correct it. Okay, so now I'm going to come back here. And that was the get key down. And what was the other one I said? Was it get key? I think. Let's try get key. Now I'll attach that to Unity. And just a little bit slow attaching. And now if I run the game, now if you hold down your right arrow key, it very quickly goes across, right? Which is probably more like what you'd want to program in. Now it reaches the far right part of the screen. Should I allow it to go off the screen? No. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this. Remember these grids here is what's based upon. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm going to come to Visual Studio. And I'm adjusting the position here. But now I'm going to do another check. As soon as I stop my debugging, I'm going to do another check here. I'm going to say if position.x is greater than 10, and I think I had to put an F here because it's floating point. Maybe not. Let me leave it off. In my beginning curly bracket, my closing curly bracket. So if it's greater than 10, then I want to hard code it, set it equal to 10. So no matter what, each time they keep pressing the right arrow key and it tries to keep going off to the far right, when it's greater than 10, it automatically says, no, okay, no, we're done. Your position.x is always equal to 10. Now notice this is embedded in the right arrow code that I just put in. Now if I click attach to Unity, and go back to Unity. Now if I run that, Press my right arrow key. It won't let me go any further than that. Maybe that's too far. Like the hands are going off the desert, aren't they? So maybe instead of 10, maybe I want to check 9.7. So if I come back here, instead of 10, 9 points. Oops, stop debugging. Why can I never remember that? Okay, 9.7. Can I change this? 9.7. We're eventually going to see how to programmatically, and it has to be a float, I guess. So I'll put an F on there. We're eventually going to see how to programmatically determine the right side of your screen instead of hard coding a value. But for now, we're just looking at how to do the code. Click attach to Unity. Come back here, run it. So then I'm going to right arrow over, and still could be a little bit back, couldn't it? But that's probably close enough. And no matter what, if I hold down that right arrow key, it will not go any further to the right. I'm going to stop the debugging here. Questions on that so far? Is everybody's working? Okay. Now, what I want you to do for the Pink Panther, just to get used to working with some of this code, I want you to program the left side, the top, and the bottom. And you can use the arrow keys if you want. If you want to use what's the standard? AS. Yeah, if you want to use that, that's fine too. I don't play video games or computer games. I play lots of PlayStation with a controller, but really don't do anything on my computer. It's not work related.
So if we were to do like keycode.w, would that work?
I don't know what it'll be, but when you're right here, if you do a dot, yeah, W.
Okay. That works.
That's the beauty of code completion, is you don't have to remember all this. By the way, the X is the left and the right. What do you think up and down is? Y, exactly. So you'll work with position.y instead of position.x.
Let me get out. For that box.
Oh, that's why I was forgetting.
Yeah, it thinks 9.7 is a double, which it is. So if I put F on there, you indicate it's a floating point.
I think it works well with a Xbox controller. We'll have to some point take a look at that.
Work.
So maybe
Good stuff. And then go back to code here. And then guide the void update. Vector to that. Do that. Go up to your right arrow. Press enter. I'll stop the button. go up there and then press enter. Now do your beginning curly brace, and press enter. Okay, now go down after this if statement. Do enter beginning curly brace. Press enter. Same with the next one. And now we're attach it.
Oh, attach them.
Just make sure it's going to the right now. Or left.
No, down there, these ones are.
Okay, so yeah, that's perfect then. Then go ahead and stop it then. And back to your code. And scroll down and see how you form the down arrow. That's where you have that code.
So then we change that to
Again.
So, yeah, but beginning brackets.
Actually, what it should look like, let me show you the general framework.
Now this is the right arrow code. So this is the end of the right arrow code. So then we want a separate if statement. So not inside the other ones. That's saying input.get key code left arrow. Like that. Now what you'll find is that you can take this inside code and like copy it, paste it inside here. But here, instead of checking, we want to check a less than negative 9.7. And if it is, then I'll set it to negative like that. But up here, instead of a plus, I want a minus, because I want it to go the other direction. Attach that to Unity. And still running it, so let me run it again. If I hold down my right arrow key, it goes to the right. If I hold down my left arrow key, it goes to the left. And stops there. So your other ones, your other lines of code, stop that. They should be on the same level as this. So you should have if input.get key code down arrow, beginning brace curly brace, or beginning and closing curly brace, and then you have an if input.get key code dot down or up arrow, like that. So yeah, if you don't see them all lined up in the same column, that means you don't got them as separate pieces of code. This is a very primitive way of checking the boundaries. So you can see I'm having to change it. And the reason why is because we're not taking the width or height of the character into consideration. So if we put a different image on there that's different height or different width, then we're just have to hard code the values. But we'll see that eventually. So going up a bit too far and a little bit down. How's it coming?
Fun.
You both got it? Okay, so that's good enough for that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing with Bugs Bunny, but instead of having it move based upon keystrokes, we want to have it moved by itself. So I'll just have it move from left to right. Now, if you click your other character, whatever it might be, and you click Add Component, you see again there's a new script down at the bottom. And I'll call this Bugs Movement. And I'll click the Create and Add down here. Now, you see down here it created a new C# file, Bugs Movement. And if I remember right, you can also click this little circle right here. If you double click that thing, my idea. There. Yeah, and that brought up the Bugs Movement. So here we can put similar code to have it move. If I take it out of debug mode. So I'm going to have a vector 2. It's still running? I don't think it's running. I'm going to click Attach to Unity, and then I'm going to stop it. Okay. So I'm going to have a vector 2. And I call it POS again, position. And I need to retrieve the position. So again, I'll do this. Our position equals this dot transform dot position. Now, first off, just generally, I want Bugs Bunny to move at an angle, and so I'm going to increase the x by 1, 1. What am I going to increase it by? 0.3 f. And I'm going to increase the y by 1, or by 0.3 f. And then I want to reassign it back to the transform position. So I say this dot transform position is going to equal to our position.
Someone doing says changes are not allowed while code is running. It's not debugging anymore.
I had to click attach to Unity and then stop it to be smart enough to know nothing was running. It happened that happened to me earlier when I was testing this out to make sure it still ran.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, that works.
Little bit of bug in our system, I think.
Yeah.
So I click attach to Unity. And it could be if you don't need debugging at all at this point, you should just go ahead and probably stop debugging. We're leaving it there just to see if we have errors. Now if I come over here and run this, you see Bugs Bunny very quickly went off the screen. Probably a little bit too fast, but it's okay. Now, if I'm increasing y by a certain amount, well, maybe I want to be decreasing it if it's going down. So instead of having a positive here, I'm going to have a direction. Now up here, see how there's use this for initialization? I believe, and I can't, and I'm not sure if we have to declare it here or here, but up here I should be able to declare. So I'm going to stop debugging. Direction equals negative or equals positive 1. And then down here, that 0.3, I'm going to actually multiply that times direction. Let's see if that works. Name direction does not exist in the current context. Okay, let me put it up here. int direction. There. Huh. Well, that's easy enough to fix. I'm going to get rid of the direction up there. Get rid of this. Not sure why it's not appearing down there. But I can come down here and I can declare it. I can say int direction equals 1. And looks like it wants me to put an F here. And direction. Now that's just not being very flexible here. Okay, instead of that, let me make this a float. Okay. Doesn't appear like it makes a whole lot of sense now, does it? We're multiplying 0.3 times what? 1? Now this one, I'm also going to multiply by the direction. Now what happens when my character goes up too high? Disappears off screen. So we really want it to reverse direction, don't we? So I can check if position.y is greater than 4, 4.5, 4, let's say 4, is greater than 4, then we're going to say the direction is equal to the direction times negative 1. And we'll say position dot y is equal to 4. Now we're going to see something weird happens with this when we do this. But again, think of it this way. Position.y is your top there, right? So your character's gone up too high. We want to multiply direction by -1. Well, what's 1 times -1? -1. So then this up here will actually be moving back down. Or actually, I should say this. Be moving back down. Okay. So we'll attach that to Unity. Come over to Unity. And I'll run this. Starts going up, but look what it did. Went off the screen, right? So not quite what I wanted. Really, if you think about it, just because it's hit the top of the screen to want to reverse the direction on the x value, x axis also? Maybe not. So so here, what I want to do is change this direction to y direction. Just as I stop my debugging. So I have a y direction there. Well, I also need to have a x direction. Now, here I'll multiply this by x direction, and I'll multiply this by y direction. And here I just want to change y, and I just want to change y again. So let's run this and see. I may have to put an F on this -1. Okay, so I'm going to run that. There's Bugs Bunny, and just kind of went off screen, didn't it? But did you see it coming back down? Did you? Oh, did it come back down? A little bit? Oh, okay. So it was just going so fast I couldn't see it. I was wondering. It didn't look like it was working. It's like, well, that isn't good. So for our x direction, we can actually check here. We can say if position dot x is greater than, what was that number we used on the right side? 9? 9 points. Okay, I'll just use 9 just to like that. And then I'll say if it's greater than 9, then my x direction is going to equal to x direction times -1. And I'll reset my x position to 9. If my position dot x is less than -9, then I again want to reverse direction. So I say x direction is equal to x direction times -1. But then now I'll hard code position dot x is equal to -9. And position dot y is less than -4. So if position dot y is less than -4, I'm going to say y direction is equal to y direction times -1. And I'll hard code position y to equal to -4. I think I have another programming issue with this that I didn't anticipate. So let me attach that to Unity and look real quick. Okay, so let me run it. It's stuck. So it's always hitting that. Which means something's going wrong with my direction. If I come down here and if I click over here in the far left somewhere, if I click here, put a little red circle. Now let me go back to Unity. It started running, but then that reaches what's called a breakpoint, and I can put my mouse over this. And my current position is 3.6 and negative 1.2. So if I click the continue, let me see if that's true. Continue, step into, let's say continue. Now it's 3.9, negative 0.9. But really what I'm interested in is direction. So maybe instead of a breakpoint there, I'll click that to shut the breakpoint off. I want to check up here where I'm checking for my direction. So I'm going to click here to put a little breakpoint there, breakpoint here, breakpoint here, and breakpoint here. And now I'll click continue. Okay, bugs just went off the screen, didn't he? So that's where your position.y is greater than 4. If I put my mouse over position, you see how it says that position is 9.04.2. Now, in theory, I set this back equal to 4, don't I? But what would my next movement do? It would add 0.3 to it, doesn't it? So that's not good. That's where my problem is. Or would it? If I flip direction, what's y direction now? Y direction is negative 1. There's a debug, and you can do a step into. This is where you go to the next line of code. So I do F11. Comes down here. Direction is still negative 1. So that's good. But what do I set y direction to each time? Positive 1, don't I? So I'm automatically resetting it each time. That's my problem. Okay, it just hit me what the issue was. Okay, so I'm going to shut off all my breakpoints. Don't worry about that. That'll become clear as we come. So I really do need to find it up here. I just need to figure out where. What if I can declare it here? Let's see. Float y direction equals 1f. Namespace cannot directly contain members. Okay, I buy that. If I come here, I think I tried, but let me paste it again. Float y direction. That worked, didn't it? I thought I tried it there. I probably didn't read the error close enough. So I'll cut that, and I'm going to put that up here. Okay, so I'm declaring it up here, and I'm setting it equal to positive 1. Now I bet it's going to work. So attach to Unity, and go run it. And that's what it was supposed to do. You see it hits that and then reverses direction. I'm obviously not going far enough to the right or the left, am I? What's another way when your character goes to the far left or far right? What could you do? Have it appear over here if you think about the one screen only. So if you have like and I'm going to have you guys work on developing like an asteroid type of setup where your rocks are going across the screen and so forth, and they disappear over here. In that game, they actually appear over on this side. So now I went through that kind of fast. But is there any specific questions?
Can you go down a little bit so I can comment the rest of the code?
Uh-huh.
That's every time I do like attach to EZD, it stops.
Tells you it's currently running and
Yeah, then like I'm not be able. Then like then I can get into Unity and run it. It takes forever.
yeah, mine does that too. I'm sitting there clicking on units like Unity like 2 or 3 times. It's like I think it's just really slow. I don't know what kind of machine you have to have quick response, but
It does slow.
what?
It does come.
Yeah, that's true. That was actually my first recommendation. I said I wanted desktops. They said no, you can't have it. They said we want you to have laptops. Their idea was that they wanted it to be a collaborative, where you could move around and work in groups and so forth. It was a fantastic idea, but you're right. Desktops have more oomph to them. So I got a laptop at home, but I don't really hardly ever use it because I use my desktop.
What do I switch your laptop? I was like, because I want to get my work done within a day. I have to sit there and wait for like his situation with something down for 12 minutes.
Yeah. Though I gotta admit, I think the laptops they picked out are probably the top of the line because I had picked out ones that were more VR ready and actually looked pretty cool. They had like a red keyboard, so if the lights was out and you had the laptops out, you'd see this red shining up. So they didn't like my idea though, which is probably as well. They're probably crappy laptops, and but it broke within 2 months. So these things feel like anchor weights, which is good.
Is there anything else under that?
I don't think so. Let me see.
Alright, yeah, I think I'm good now.
Okay.
Let's try and run it in Unity. Yeah, that works.
Okay. See, what we're going to be doing next class meeting is we'll start designing the that meteor game, where they have different size of meteors, and we'll have them moving around on the screen and going off and so forth. And then you have your ship in the middle, and then we'll take a look at how we can rotate it and so forth. Well, eventually, we're just getting used to programming now. We're eventually going to add a lot of the built-in features of Unity to simplify some of that coding, some of that design. Well, we only got 1 minute left, so that's probably close enough to the end of class.